Hello, and welcome to today's edition of the Esri Law Enforcement webinar series, How Houston PD is Using GIS to Go Beyond Crime Analysis. I am John Beck, the Director of Law Enforcement Solutions for Esri, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Krista Laney. Chris is the Law Enforcement Technical Lead for Esri. We're also excited to have a couple special guests from the Houston Police Department's GIS unit. We're joined by Patrick Alexander, who is the GIS Manager, and Lieutenant Freddie Croft, the GIS Supervisor for HPD. The reason we are having HPD on today is that they're doing some great and innovative work to bring GIS beyond desktop crime analysis and are using Web GIS to enable information sharing with the entire department via a variety of self-service maps and apps. To do this, Patrick and Freddie and team have created an Enterprise GIS Portal and are using ArcGIS sites and a variety of other web apps that they're going to discuss with us today. After we hear from Patrick and Freddie, we'll turn it over to Chris to further explore ArcGIS Enterprise and sites and how you can bring this technology to your own agency. We'll wrap up with some resources to get you started. And as always during our webinars, feel free to ask questions in the chat window and we'll answer them as many as we can either during the webinar or at the end of the webinar. So let's turn it over to Houston Police Department's GIS unit and Freddie and Patrick. Hi guys, welcome to the webinar.
Hey, John. Thank you. So our goal here at the Houston Police Department's GIS unit is to provide GIS with a purpose to our police personnel, enabling them to really leverage the power of location intelligence. Now, our unit aims to serve 4 different categories of users in our department: our command staff, such as our commanders, assistant chiefs, executive assistant chiefs, and the chief of police. Our crime analysts, who were, for the longest time, are traditional producers and consumers of GIS, specialized units such as SWAT, gang, and special events, and last but not least, our patrol officers. And Freddie will talk more in depth about how we are doing this later on. When you add these 4 user categories up, our 3-man unit is charged with helping approximately 6,000 members of the department make better informed decisions. And we can do this by taking a top-down and bottom-up approach to leverage GIS throughout the department in order to gain the most buy-in possible from our end users. This is accomplished by deploying a Web GIS, employing ArcGIS Enterprise Portal, sites, Survey 123, and operations dashboards, just to name a few. Our top-down approach involved face-to-face meetings with command staff during monthly command staff and ComStat meetings. The bottom-up approach was a grassroots effort from the unit to really reach out and go to different workplaces around the city to show crime analysts, tactical units, community policing units, and patrol what we were doing and how we can help them. My mantra about how we can help other units is that we are there to help them with a problem that may have a possible geospatial solution. We are not there to give them a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I tell my folks that don't be afraid to turn down a project because there isn't a geospatial nexus, or even if there is, if it can be done in a better, more efficient way with other existing software. Sometimes a mapping application just isn't necessary for all scenarios, because the last thing I want our unit to do is give our officers a solution that makes their job even more difficult than it was before. That doesn't create buy-in for GIS or our unit. With all that being said, the path to where we are today wasn't an easy one. We had to overcome many challenges, but the first step was to gain buy-in and executive sponsor, or 2, or 3 in my case, culminating with a meeting and presenting to the chief of police why it was important to invest more resources into GIS from our department than we had previously done in years past. But things really got going for us in the last 9 months when then Sergeant, now Lieutenant Freddie Croft, joined our team. Utilizing Freddie's knowledge of department frontline operations, the GIS unit set out to deliver a full-scale enterprise deployment, utilizing the solutions from the ArcGIS Enterprise platform to help solve our many challenges, some of which we will showcase here. The HPD GS Portal was stood up to act as a hub for our GIS professionals and content creators, of which the department has approximately 100 individuals. Utilizing story maps and operations dashboards, we created out-of-the-box web applications to solve the problem of situational awareness for our command staff. However, we quickly realized that the GIS Portal was not the ideal platform to deliver GIS content to our frontline officers. We discovered that some of our less technical users found it difficult to navigate. Since we service 4 different user groups, we needed to really compartmentalize the user experience. Portal just wasn't giving us the user experience we were craving for our end users to have. So we needed a highly configurable website where we could put the URL on every single computer in the department, to include the ones in their police vehicles. We also had the added challenge of getting the purpose-built web applications to our frontline officers within 2 clicks and a sign-on. Fortunately, ArcGIS Enterprise comes with Sites out of the box. Now, Sites isn't new. It's been out for a few years, but what really captivated me when it was first introduced was the ability to create a full-fledged website within our organization. And I didn't have to worry about CGIS data going outside of our firewall. Best yet, it was easy. Different units could manage their own sites and pages, and it tied into our whole ecosystem of GIS content from our GIS portal. I'm not sure about most agencies, but our IT does not employ an internal website that looks cool like Wix for our personnel to use. At best, we have an intranet site that is controlled and locked down by IT. Think bulletin boards, from circa 1990s. Freddie, why don't you walk everyone through what we came up with and some of the ideas we are playing with right now?
Thanks, Patrick, and welcome everyone. So Sites was our answer on how we communicate with our end users. All of those different groups that Patrick mentioned, the patrol officers, the command staff, all of those people have very different needs and uses for our GIS products. We needed a way to make the products and service that we custom built for them more easily accessible, easy to find, where they didn't have to go through pages of different galleries or groups looking for the applications. They're right there for them. Sites allowed us to create this space where we could host applications and dashboards and really custom tailor the experience based on the needs of the end users, adhering to the 2 clicks and a sign-on mentality. Straight from our homepage, we set out to make a really professional and branded website that was easy to navigate and use. And because of all the different tools integrate so easily into Sites, we were able to right off the bat start introducing users to the concepts of Web GIS. And we did this through our Know Your Beat dashboard, HPD's take on the infographic. You see, when an officer works in an area for a long time, they develop a sense of pride in the area they work. They become somewhat protective of it, and it's like they take responsibility for it. This dashboard allows new officers or officers new to an area to quickly get information about the beat they work. Things like how large the area is, how many banks or pharmacies are in that area, and even get a snapshot of recent crime. Every card in the dashboard links to another dashboard, allowing them to dig deeper and start exploring into the capabilities of Web GIS. On this particular dashboard, we're currently in the process of enriching all the data with a wealth of demographic and socioeconomic data to give them even more insights of the area they work, allowing them to better understand their beat. From there, we have an About Us section. Here we spell out exactly who we are and what our mission, vision, and goals are as a unit. Really spell out what we're trying to accomplish. The Meet the Team page does exactly that. It allows users to get to know the members of the GIS unit, putting a face to the name behind all the work and applications that they see. Now, having this tool has been actually really great because it acted as an unintentional feedback loop for me. To this day, I frequently have colleagues reach out to me commenting on the photos in the embedded story map, which lets me know they're using our product. I then take these opportunities to steer them in directions of other things they might be looking for. It lets me know when people are engaging with our website. Using a Sites within Sites concept, we created blog pages where our analysts and GIS content creators can come and get information that pertains to them. We put up quick training tutorials and push out GIS-related articles here. One of the things we pride ourselves on the HPD's GIS unit is being accessible to anybody in the department. In order to make that process more streamlined, we embedded a Survey 123 app on our project request page, giving us our own makeshift talent or ticket management system, all within our own enterprise. With the data that we control, we are able to keep track of projects as they come in, count for work that we do, and make it simple for anybody to reach out and get a project going. The GIS resources page acts as a repository for all of our technical documents for our analysts. We put up guides on how to connect to our SDE, connecting Pro to Portal, and answering any frequently asked questions that we get from our analysts. We also link to outside resources we think might be useful or helpful to our analysts. Our GIS training page is where we post information about GIS-related training coming up, both internal and external, letting them know of opportunities that we see so that they can take the initiative and get more training themselves. Using different Survey 123 forms embedded into a tab story map, our employees can come in and sign up for training that we offer, allowing us to organize our training and bypassing the need for a cumbersome talent management system. Below that, inside of a dashboard that utilizes multiple lists, the users that sign up for training can immediately see the classes they're signed up for and also see who else are taking the classes with them. Now, the really cool feature about these use of dashboards as a list feed is that you can do all sorts of things. We have makeshift RSS feeds, a forum type setting, and a bunch of other things that these dashboards can do. Behind the scenes, we have an unindexed page with multiple dashboards for our unit that allows us to see when new project requests come in and how full different classes are, allowing us to keep track of our work and creating more internal accountability. Lastly, our Patrol Labs page. This page was created specifically for our frontline officers. Here we link to different web applications and dashboards that we created for them. At the top, we have an unrestricted section with applications that anybody on a department computer can access without having to log in. Below that are restricted applications, ones that require employees to log in. These are apps that contain more protected information like crime or incident level data. At the bottom, we have report lists where we link to non-GIS reports and applications that still might be useful for their everyday duties. Our sites build out allowed us to create a one-stop shop for all of our employee needs, where everything is in reach within just 2 clicks and a sign-on. Now, sites has been amazing for us, and it really increased our exposure across the department and what our unit can do. But it's not where WebGIS really started in HPD, at least not for me. For that, you have to go back to Hurricane Harvey in 2017. You see, the months following the storm, I was assigned with the task of coming up to response to an emerging crime trend we noticed along areas where flooding was worse than an area of town that I was assigned to at that time. We noticed that a large number of homes along a bayou that were flooded were now being burglarized, in the process re-victimizing the complainants who had already lost so much in the storm. Mind you, this is an area of town that traditionally had very low crime rates, so it was something that had to be addressed and quickly. Using this new-to-me tool of WebGIS, I was able to quickly get a better understanding of the problem we were facing. After looking through the data, we found that a lot of the crimes were happening on the same street around the same time in little blocks of time, as if some crew was going down the street and hitting houses after house. We then identified the neighborhood where houses were more recently hit and deployed undercover officers in that neighborhood. Within a week, our tactical unit observed a crew literally doing just that, going house to house with a flatbed pickup truck, breaking into houses. Our officers were able to arrest the crew, about a half a dozen of them, and recover over $150,000 in stolen property, which included over 100 different firearms that were stolen, closing out dozens of cases and returning the stolen property to its rightful owners. This case was a huge win for HPD, but it also solidified the power of GIS and how powerful it can be when you put critical information into the hands of our frontline officers. Now, fast forward, more recently, during another major flooding event, Patrick and I had the opportunity to go into our department's operations center, see how they conducted their operations. Our dock, which just acts as most agencies, what they call their EOC, or Emergency Operations Center, is where all of our commanders and chiefs go and determine our department's response to these major events. After just a few moments, Patrick and I saw multiple opportunities that we could leverage WebGIS in the dock to improve the operations and efficiencies. So we got to work creating solutions then and there. But it only made sense to us to create a sites page for our dock that we could activate during these major events and act as a hub for all of the emergency-related applications. So that's exactly what we did. The first application we made was our high-value target dashboard. You see, after Harvey, we realized that there were certain commercial locations that were getting more heavily targeted by criminals. These were gun stores, pawn shops, jewelry stores, and pharmacies. The first thing we did was map out these locations. We brought that information into a dashboard for our dock so that they can see where these locations are. But with this dashboard, they can also see where officers are assigned to provide coverage in those areas of high-value targets. On the back end of this dashboard, analysts and patrol supervisors use a web app that they can assign officers to an area by simply dropping a point where the officers will cover for that shift. This information then populates the dashboard, giving our command staff the ability to see what areas have or lack coverage, taking a top-down approach to personnel management during these major events. On the flip side, during floods, we took a bottom-up approach to information gathering. You see, when flooding was reported before in the dock, it was a manual process. Officers called up and let the analyst or the person in the dock know where the flooding was, and it was captured on pen and paper. To better streamline this process, we created a web application where we were able to leverage our 5,000 uniformed officers to crowdsource flooding information. By using this web app, officers from their patrol cars can simply place a dot where a flooding was happening at a street or intersection, and the dot got up-to-date information about the event. Now, taking it one step further, officers can provide detailed information, such as how many lanes were affected, how deep the water is, and even request things like barricade to those locations. All of this information feeds into our high water hazard dashboard, where decision makers can see requests and flood notifications in real time and get resources dispatched accordingly. On the back end of every card is another card that tracks the current deployed resources, making it so everything's accounted for. And because all this information is stored and archived, we can analyze the data afterwards to better prepare for next time by identifying those locations that flood time and time again, and we can stage resources nearby. We have multiple other applications built for the dock, and we are constantly upgrading them with new data sets. But as I said earlier, we have many groups that we service. And one thing we really enjoy doing is helping out our specialized units better complete their missions. One such unit consisted of a group of patrol sergeants who were looking for a way to pre-plan responses to active shooter events at schools. You see, they had a binder with map printouts of these schools in the area, and they were noting things like where the master key was, what streets needed to be blocked off, or what areas were suitable for medical helicopters to land. These plans would help take the guesswork of how to manage these scenes once they had been secured, and they had turned to focusing on rendering aid and processing the scene. They came to us and asked if we could help digitize this process. We sat down with them, captured all the information they needed, and made them a simple web application that they could use to make their plans. The key here was making it easy to use for the patrol units. Now, all of this information that they created was then presented to patrol officers in a companion app, where the officers simply search the school and filter it out. And it would, as selecting it from the list on the right, they could get the plan that was built for that school. But unlike the binder they had before, this information can now be used by any officer on the department from any computer, taking the guesswork out of these complex responses, saving seconds when seconds matter. In a similar situation, our gang intelligence unit came to us with their task of mapping out and tracking the different gang territories throughout Houston. At the time, they had a few dozen paper maps where they too were making annotations with pen and marker. After capturing all of these things they wanted in their map, we created them a web app that they could use to do their work digitally. But because they were analysts, we were also able to leverage other web layers that we had, like the schools or the apartments, and even crime information, so that they could get a bigger picture on what was driving these gang turfs. The huge benefit to this solution was that the data that they created, this information that would normally be held in either their head or on their desk on pen and paper, was now able to be shared with officers throughout the department. Our specialized units are some of the projects we really have a lot of fun with, coming up with ways to make their work easier or more efficient. But another group of people in our department we knew we had to come up with solutions for was our command staff. Our solution for them was to give them a quick and easy tool where they could get a better understanding of where crime was happening as it happened. Our recent crime dashboard allows our commanders and chiefs to see up to a month's worth of recent crime data live anytime they want, without having to go to their crime analyst and having data pooled and processed. Similar to our command staff, we wanted to provide our frontline staff, our patrol officers, a tool that they could use. And with that, the recent crime viewer was great. But officers know where crime is happening as it's happening because they're out there answering the calls for service. They're out there doing the reports. So the solution for them was something different, and it was come up with by one of our colleagues, Barry Fosberg, from our crime analysis unit. The concept he came up with was, instead of telling officers where crime is happening today or yesterday, he wanted to tell them where crime was always happening. Where are these persistent hotspots? So he took a large amount of crime data and started doing some analysis. He found that 1% of the addresses in the city accounted for over 25% of our crime. So he took his crime data and aggregated them into small hexagon grids that are easily drivable in a short amount of time on patrol. With this information, our crime microzone web app was born. He then took it a step further and broke crime out by whether it was violent or nonviolent, what shift it occurred on, and letting the officers know how to make better informed decisions and what are the primary drivers of crime in their area. Now, these are just a few of the applications we've been working on over the past year or 9 months or so, but I'll turn it back over to Patrick to discuss some of the things we're excited to be working on currently for future use. Patrick?
Great, thanks, Freddie. So looking forward, and as Freddie mentioned, the GIS unit has many projects in pipeline at all different stages of development. In the near term, we were excited to be able to beta test a special event solution during our recent Thanksgiving Day parade. HPD provides officers to over 200 events each year, some which reoccur annually and many run concurrently, which was a huge challenge to a small but dedicated group of officers. The special event unit currently conducts their workflows with paper maps created from PowerPoint, paper reports, and an Access database. This complete solution takes a special event like the parade you see here from permitting all the way through to the after action report, with the added bonus of being able to archive the event for future use. For special events like this one, we are planning on extending the solution by adding police personnel, the blue dots you see here, where the attributes will auto-populate from our police personnel SQL Server database, and we're also going to create a custom report. So in the midterm, we are using drones and Drone Map to help 3D model the buildings, structures, and grounds of our SWAT training facilities in order to bring in the 3D mesh imagery into a purpose-built tactical planning web application. This will assist SWAT officers to help plan, brief, and execute training operations. Also, in the mid to long-term range, and I know this might be ambitious on my part, but we are interested in utilizing ArcGIS Indoors to operationalize the BIM files from our brand new tactical training village, among a host of other reasons. The aim is to 3D model the tactical village in Scene Viewer and tie that in to our 360-degree camera files, blending the two together to create an immersive 3D tactical training application. In the long term, the mayor and police chief have committed the city and HPD to the Vision Zero initiative, where Houston will strive to have zero traffic fatalities by the year 2050. We will bring this web application you see here inside our enterprise deployment for our police chief and command staff to strategize possible solutions, bringing our fatalities down to zero and keeping with one of our department's core missions of help keeping our communities safe. Lastly, for those of you out there that see the potential of WebGIS in your organization, let me leave you with this. Find your champions, find your executive leaders, find your mission, and drive it forward. Lead from the front and innovate. Don't be afraid to communicate your brand and get out of your office and build those partnerships. Everything you've seen here today was created in the last 9 months by a 3-man team. You most certainly can do it too. Also, feel free to reach out to Freddie or I, and we will be more than happy to share our experiences. Well, that's all I have. I will now turn it over to Chris.
Thanks a lot, Patrick, and thanks a lot, Freddie. This is Krista Laney, the technical lead at Esri for law enforcement. And what I'd like to do now is contextualize one of the many different pieces of technology that you've just seen illustrated by the great work that Patrick and Freddie at Houston PD have been doing. And although they showed many different things, they showed ArcGIS Enterprise, they showed Operations Dashboard, a variety of configurations of Web App Builder, and then some new capabilities that leverage some advanced technologies like the ArcGIS JavaScript 4x API. What I really want to focus on is the way that officers at Houston PD consume that content. And the way that they consume that content is through ArcGIS Enterprise sites. ArcGIS Enterprise sites, as Patrick mentioned, is a way to enable your users who are not GIS people and for whom some of the functionality of the GIS portal is not relevant to experience that content in ways that make sense to them. So just for a little bit of context, ArcGIS Enterprise Sites really is a presentation layer in many respects for the content that lives in a WebGIS. And the core capabilities of WebGIS, what makes WebGIS so great is this idea that it can consume any kind of data set, whether it's real-time data, imagery or vector, big data, spreadsheets from your organization, expose that data as location web services into your portal. That portal controls access to that information, enables you to deliver that content in all sorts of different configurable app forms to be able to serve all of the needs of your users in your organization. But serving your users in a law enforcement organization is not just about building an app. It's building an experience for them to be able to discover useful and relevant content to them. And that's really what ArcGIS Enterprise Sites is about. I think Patrick referred to a couple of different kinds of website builders that are out there, that if you've ever had the experience of not being a developer but having to build a website, you may be familiar with them. WordPress, for example, there's a number of them out there. That's essentially what ArcGIS Enterprise Sites is. It's simply the ability for you to build a configurable, semi-custom website and web page to expose content from your ArcGIS Enterprise portal to the users in your organization. So to shape and deliver a product in a form that makes sense for your users. And that can take a variety of different forms, whether that is the ability to consume that information quickly and easily, contextualize it from a mobile device, organize an entire kind of website framework with multiple different pages oriented to different users across your organizations, or to just make sort of a one-stop shop for a couple of key things. It really gives you a lot of capability to tailor an experience based on your users' needs and expectations to make it very easy to consume the content that you want to share with them from your GIS portal. And so I think you saw this from Patrick and Freddie, but one point that I really want to emphasize is that it just is modifying and cleaning the experience of consuming that content. So these are a couple of screenshots that I'm about to show you that come from some of our demonstration portals. We have an ArcGIS Enterprise portal on the public safety team for us to be able to coordinate and share various demonstrations and information we put together. What you're seeing right now is the homepage of that portal. It follows the normal way that an enterprise portal looks, with the gallery and the map and the scenes. We've put some buttons on here because we're getting ready for Fed GIS, our upcoming user conference in Washington, DC next week. But this is not ready for use by a particular user of this portal who might be looking for, let's say, law enforcement specific content. So using ArcGIS Enterprise Sites, instead of having one of my users who might be someone on our public safety team looking for that information, instead of having to have them go here and dig through the portal interface, instead they can have a ready-to-use site that has already organized all the information they need, highlights, okay, here's our PowerPoint for law enforcement, key demonstrations, resources that they might be interested in, various apps, and all of that is in one single spot. We've contextualized it with text, we've organized it so it's easy to understand, and in that way, if you don't know anything about law enforcement, you could walk in and get up to speed with this at a moment's notice. That's really what Enterprise Sites is about. Organizing the data in a way that makes sense for your users to make it easier for them to leverage the content in your ArcGIS portal. So the way that the kind of relationship between ArcGIS Enterprise, the portal, and these sites work is when you deploy ArcGIS Enterprise into your environment, you're generally deploying three main components. You're deploying the portal component of Enterprise, the ArcGIS server that handles the services that go into the portal, and the ArcGIS data store, which is a place that you can store all of your hosted data that powers your hosted feature services. ArcGIS Enterprise Sites is a component of the portal, and ArcGIS Enterprise Sites is going to enable you to spin up as many of these sites as you want, and each site can have as many pages as you want. So think about the site as a kind of completely separate kind of website. So you've got google.com and esri.com and espn.com, all these different websites. So you could have as many different websites as you want that are powered off of ArcGIS Enterprise sites, and then individual pages off of those sites. For those of you who are not ArcGIS Enterprise users in your organization currently, you may be familiar with another capability in the ArcGIS ecosystem that is very comparable to ArcGIS Enterprise sites, and that is in ArcGIS Online, we have a capability called ArcGIS Hub that performs the similar kind of function for ArcGIS Enterprise sites in ArcGIS Enterprise, but in ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Hub is what you'll use to be able to deliver open data portals for citizens, for example. When it comes to building an ArcGIS Enterprise site, there's some kind of key terminology to understand as you're going into building an ArcGIS Enterprise site. What you see on the right-hand side is a layout of the common pieces, parts of a particular enterprise site. So you'll have things like at the top, a header that's going to have your branding and key links to be able to help you navigate through that site. A theme is something that you apply to a site that's going to be the fonts and the colors so that from page to page, there's a common look and feel that you're going to have in your site. And then the content of your site is going to be organized into rows. You'll notice in my graphic that we've got different rows are sort of different colored, and visually that immediately draws your eyes to that information. It differs as you move from these different colored rows. So rows give you the ability to organize data. And then the actual content that lives in those rows are called cards. There's a variety of different cards that you can put into an ArcGIS Enterprise site that are going to give you the ability to deliver a rich multimedia experience in your site. And then at the bottom of any site, you're going to have a footer that's going to have additional resources or links that you're going to put on there for contact information or for people who need to be able to ask questions. So the key part of the sites are the ability to build cards. There's a variety of different cards that you can add into an ArcGIS Enterprise site. Those cards can be anything from a web map that lives in your ArcGIS Enterprise portal to an iframe of an app that you've created so that you're embedding inside the ArcGIS Enterprise site, maybe an operations dashboard or web app builder. But you also have the ability to create summary statistics or charts inside of your site as well. So if you're trying to represent key performance metrics, let's say you're doing a site for a particular division in your policing agency, and you want to be able to have current counts of crime for the year, current number of homicides, current number of shootings. You can build those little indicators right into the enterprise site itself, and you can also build in charts that can display kind of the key metrics as well. If you want to be able to incorporate content from other locations, you have the ability to embed videos, whether it's your videos that are hosted internally or whether they're coming from a video hosting service such as YouTube or Vimeo. And you can also embed social media feeds. So if you have a Twitter feed for your agency that you're tracking and you want to be able to have that inside your site, you can do that as well. The last general category of content is things that live in your portal, various items that you want your users of a site to have access to. That could be data that has been categorized. So maybe you have a category in your enterprise site for all of your dashboards, and you want to be able to have a card that shows a list of all of your dashboards. Or maybe you have a gallery of a particular group of apps that you want to be able to share as part of this site. So you can take all these cards, you can mash them up to tell a story relative to the kind of key idea that you're trying to illustrate using your site by combining images, text, live maps and apps, charts and summary statistics, and then access to items or other content inside of your ArcGIS Enterprise portal to deliver that rich experience to your end user. There's a couple of things that I wanted to highlight that are notable improvements to what we've been working on with ArcGIS Enterprise sites that are coming at 10.8. 10.8 is the newest version of ArcGIS Enterprise. It will be released later this month. And there's 4 main areas that I'd like to highlight that are significant improvements that users have been requesting to the Enterprise sites functionality. First and foremost is the ability to do site cloning. Currently in ArcGIS Enterprise sites, every site that you build, you have to, if you want to make a copy of it, you have to rebuild it from scratch again. Now at 10.8, once you've built a site and you like it and you want to make an identical copy of it, you can do that using our new site cloning tools. Very simple and easy to use. In 3 clicks, you can have a clone of your site. This starts to become very exciting when you're doing things like building enterprise sites for each individual district or division in your police agency. Now you can build it once, and then once you've got it right, you can make clones of it to be able to then make small variations for the needs of each individual district or division. A second capability that's exciting is the ability to have a global navigation header. So regardless of where you go, all the different sub pages that you might navigate through in your ArcGIS Enterprise portal, you can now always have a navigation header at the top of your website, and that's going to give you the ability to have kind of reference links, ensure consistent branding at the top, so that your users can never get lost drilling through your enterprise sites and getting confused as to where they were or where they need to get back to. That's another often requested capability from our existing ArcGIS Enterprise users. We've also worked on a lot of capabilities to make searching capability easier and more useful in ArcGIS Enterprise sites. So being able to search by collections of data, being able to include autocomplete in any of the search bars in ArcGIS Enterprise sites, and being able to kind of add various sort of facets of searching. So you can see in this screenshot right here, you can type into your search, it would autocomplete as you type, but it's also enabling you to do sort of category selections for certain kinds of data that you're interested in. That's a search facet. If you also have users who are going to primarily be consuming their sites on mobile devices, we've significantly improved the mobile responsiveness of sites so that it performs faster and it looks better on any kind of mobile device. And lastly, and this might be the most often requested improvement to ArcGIS Enterprise sites, we've changed the way that user controls for site editing behave. Currently, if you are using ArcGIS Enterprise sites in a Arc 10.7.1 environment or earlier, the way that you assign permissions to build ArcGIS Enterprise sites is through one single group that you create, that is the site administration group. Everyone has the ability to edit any of the sites that your organization creates if they're invited into that administration group. That's a problem for some organizations where if you're operating multiple sites, you don't necessarily want all of your users to have the ability to go in and muck something up in one of the sites that they are not directly responsible for. So at 10.8, we've changed some of our structure for user permissioning around site editing. Now, the way that you're going to be able to build this is that you can build core groups for editing each individual site by themselves. So you can have a group and everyone can have access to that group for a particular site. And if you need to have a separate group for a separate site, you can now do that. So it becomes a much more streamlined way to be able to control who has access to which editing of various sites in your organization. So that was a look at some of the kind of new things that are coming to ArcGIS Enterprise sites at 10.8, which is again slated for release later this month with ArcGIS Pro 2.5. Now I'd like to just kind of go over a couple of high-level things on getting started. First and foremost, ArcGIS Enterprise Sites is a capability that lives only inside of ArcGIS Enterprise. So if you want to be able to build these kind of internal-facing custom websites, that is a capability that is available only to ArcGIS Enterprise. When you are deploying ArcGIS Enterprise, you will need an administrator named user type to help you get the sites set up and to establish a group for editing of those sites. So if you are in an analyst position in your agency, for example, you're going to need to get with the administrator of your ArcGIS Enterprise portal to be able to help you get ArcGIS Enterprise sites stood up, get a administrative group going to be able to have a set of people who can be responsible for building these sites. And the people who are going to be responsible for building those sites do need creator named user types because they need to be able to do editing to be able to build out these sites and share them for all of your users. And that's really the kind of core set of things that you're going to need in order to be able to use ArcGIS Enterprise sites. When you're getting going, my recommendation to new users of ArcGIS Enterprise sites, don't just jump in and start building away, because you may find that the way that you build your ArcGIS Enterprise site is you've built sort of a more complex structure than you need. You're not leveraging the existing pages that you've already built. Spend the time before you jump into the technology and map out what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Find a whiteboard and plan out, is this site going to be kind of a standalone site? Is it going to be part of the larger organization? What is the kind of key content that we want our users to be consuming in this site? And how do we get them there as soon as possible? How can I lay out a structure that is going to be consistent with the kind of key objectives across multiple iterations of user experience? So laying out a page hierarchy like you're seeing right here on the right-hand side, where I've got a home page for my site. I've got 4 pages off of that, an About Us, a Maps and Stats, a Citizen Outreach, and an Initiatives page. And each of those in turn have sub-pages where maybe I have different sub-pages for crime, traffic, and calls for service, and each one of them has their own sub-pages for maps, statistics, and data. The more time you spend clearly understanding what it is that you're trying to accomplish with your site and planning out how it can look, the less time you're going to have to spend dealing with iterating on the technology, because you'll know what you want to build. Then you just need to figure out how to apply sites to solve it. The second lesson that a lot of enterprise sites users learn is that enterprise sites, because it's a content curation tool, is not a sit it and forget it kind of app. This is something that a lot of people are going to see, they're going to be experiencing, and because it becomes essentially the front door for exposing your non-GIS users to your GIS content, it really is important to keep it evergreen. And so that means spending time every month, and maybe setting aside a few hours every month to do some quality assurance, make sure links are behaving the way that they're supposed to, make sure descriptive text makes sense, leveraging as you're doing upgrades to your ArcGIS Enterprise environment, new capabilities to be able to improve the experience. And as you get more comfortable and more familiar with the capabilities of ArcGIS Enterprise sites, in particular, ArcGIS Enterprise sites depends quite heavily on the ability to use HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, As your skills extend in those capabilities beyond just the out-of-the-box configurable cards, you'll want to continue to advance the styling and advanced styling and look and feel, and you'll be able to do that with HTML and CSS and in the Bootstrap capabilities that are part of ArcGIS Enterprise sites to continually grow the quality of the experience for your users over time. So plan, if you're going to go down the road of sites, plan that now this is something that you own and you need to keep evergreen and you need to keep evolving. So that was a brief look at some of the kind of core capabilities of ArcGIS Enterprise sites, what's coming new, and some basics on getting started with ArcGIS sites. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to John. We've got about 15 minutes or so in the webinar. We have a bunch of questions from everyone who's been online. Thank you, and John, do we have any questions for Houston PD or for me?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we got a few, and I think we have time to ask a couple here. First, let me shoot this one to the Houston guys. Can you guys speak a little bit more about how long it took you to roll this out from conception to getting buy-in from executives to standing up the portal and getting to the point that you are today?
Yeah, sure. So this is Patrick, and I'll take that. It really took some time, to be quite honest. We counted 9 months from when we started to what you see today. And that is true in a sense that when the current iteration of our enterprise went live to what you see today. However, to get to May of 2019, it was more like 4 years of work behind the scenes of getting everything set up with approvals and resources allocated and things like that. So it took some time, and then I kind of mentioned that in my part about how we've had the path wasn't very smooth, and we had some setbacks, and then there were times when I had to ask myself some really hard questions and said that, okay, this isn't working, and we need to start again. So we definitely had those challenges, and fortunately for us, we had management and leadership that were understanding of what we were trying to do, and in the end, we wanted the best experience for our department. What was the other part of that, John?
No, that was great. I think a add-on to that question, and Chris alluded to this, is that quality assurance process that he recommends on a monthly basis of maintaining and reviewing your site. Can you speak a little bit? You guys have a bunch of different apps in there. Do you guys have a QA process? Who's maintaining it? Is it just you, or are there multiple admins to the site?
Yeah, it is a good question. So we have a portal governance documentation that if you're on our portal homepage, you can see, and you can click on that, and it gives the creators in our organization, if they're going to make their own sites, kind of like what they need to do, or if they're going to be publishing content to the portal, what they should be following in accordance to what our guidance is, and anything like that. We also periodically, like Chris mentioned, go through the portal, and typically it's myself, and I'll tell Freddie or other members of the staff that, hey, this needs to be changed, this needs to be updated, hey, this documentation, we're moving to a different version, let's update the document. So it is a live and living, breathing website that we have to maintain, and we consciously knew that once we set up sites and we're going to use this as a mechanism to get our information out to the broadest audience possible, that it was going to be some overhead to maintain the system and the website itself. So knowing that, and we knew we needed to carve some time out of our busy schedules to maintain it, but we thought the effort was worth it. So that's what we did.
Great.
So that's what we're doing.
Let's see if I could piggyback too. Is we have a large floor. Like our unit's only 3, but we're right next to our crime analysis unit, and they have multiple users, and we all use it daily. The site, that's how we get to a lot of our own applications and whatnot, especially if we're just going to use them. So there's almost constant visit, like people are looking at it constantly on our floor, and so we get really quick feedback on, like, if we notice something that's wrong, and people are very quick to point out, if there's a misspelling or something. So and that's always something that we change immediately. Like that small changes especially will go top of the priority, because it's like how we are front facing, our way of communicating. We make sure that it's always up to date as possible, as and as curated and perfect as possible. So we do take a lot of time. We probably make changes to it, every other day, little changes here and there.
Thanks, guys. So it looks like there's a lot of different data that you're exposing to your agency that's coming from different systems within your agency, whether it's CAD or RMS data or sensor data. What is your ETL process to get that into into the portal and make that usable to the rest of your agency?
Yeah, so our biggest way is just leveraging our SQL Server database. So our RMS data and CAD data will go into our warehouse, our data warehouse, and where it gets massaged, and then we'll have tables that are custom queries that are producing these tables for what we're going to be showing in our portal. So we really think through, like, okay, what kind of data do we want to show to our department? What's been requested? Does that need to be a GIS unit function where we're going to host it as a federated service? Or is that something that can be a hosted feature service from one of the smaller units? So we think through all that, and then we go through the SQL Server and create a table, and then from that we'll bring it into Pro. And so all the heavy processing is done in the SQL Server with stored procedures. And it's as simple as bringing it into Pro and then publishing it up as a registered data set and symbolizing it all done in ArcGIS Pro, and then pushing it up as a federated service. And then we just leverage that in our products, and we'll either expose it to the entire organization or the department, or we'll lock it down to a specific group, depending on what the data type is. So not too difficult ETL there, but there's different ways we can do it as well. And then we also have another process where if it's more localized, where we don't need to have big GIS unit doing it, and there's other analysts who want to do this themselves, we help them set up their own ETL process, kind of by doing the extract from an RMS with an Excel that's dumped into a file folder, where they can then use the crime analysis toolbar that is in ArcGIS Pro to then push that up as a hosted feature service into the portal, and that can be set with Windows Task Scheduler, and then they can do that themselves. So we also help other users do that, and depending on what we have, we may do that ourselves.
And how do you guys handle security for the GIS portal? Is it completely behind your firewall? How's that work?
Yeah, so security is 100% behind our firewall. We're using Active Directory to do it, and LDAP for those folks out there who are more on the security side, so that way we can have kind of a seamless login for our users. Now, I will say that we first started doing this, and we were going to use integrated Windows authentication, right? And that's really great. You can open up the website, and you're automatically logged in. But then further discussions with IT, and it was kind of like an IT best practice to not do that. And it was the only application that the department had where you didn't have to log in a second time once you were already on your computer. So we backed out of that and said, you know what, let's just go with the best practice that the department is holding and just have our users log in. But they're using their AD, and with LDAP, it's really great because you don't have to use the Windows domain in your username. And that was another conscious effort as well, because we wanted the most users to use that. And we didn't want our user base to get confused by what a domain was or why did they have to type that in before their name. They knew they had a username for their computer and they knew their password. So we kept that through. So we consciously thought that through so they can make it seamless as possible.
Gotcha.
And then we lock everything else down by groups as well.
And you're a large agency, of course, I think around 6,000 personnel. Do they all have access to the portal? Are they all named users? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so correct, 6,000 users. It's all behind our firewall. So when we tell our department, and if you go through the different settings that you can lock the portal down to, we allow for anonymous users because it's behind our firewall. And then when you say public, our public is anyone in our department who can access the domain, right? And so that can be anywhere from an executive assistant all the way down to like a jailer, right? So all those kind of things, or even all the way up to the chief. So we have applications where we said, you know what, we want everyone to see this application. So we throw it out there to the entire public, I'm making air quotes right now, public of our organization where they can then see it if they go to the portal or to the sites. They can click on the application and get the information that they need. Other things like that. So we have, I don't know, maybe like 5,000 level 1 users. And then for those who don't know, those are free for enterprise. You just get the license file for that, and you have that. So all of our classified officers are named level 1 viewers in an organization. And so they can log in, or again, if it's public, and for like Freddie was showing everyone the patrol apps, the unrestricted patrol apps are set to public so anyone can see them. And then for the restricted ones, they'll log in as their named level 1 users, and then they can see the information that they're looking for.
Gotcha. So we have a lot more questions. So if we didn't get to your question, I want to be respectful of our time today. If we didn't get to your question, no worries. We'll follow up directly with you via email. I can see all of your questions in front of me, and I'll share them with the Houston guys, or we can answer them if they're for us Esri folks. I do want to leave you with a couple of our upcoming webinars. This webinar will be available in a couple days. So if you want to go back and view the recording of it, and as well as all of our webinars are all archived, so you can go back and view any of our public safety webinars at esri.com/PS webinar. Our next webinar is going to be February 19th, where we're going to be talking about our brand new special event solutions. Putting the special back in your special event is the title of that webinar. And like I said, you can view all of our past webinars there. If you want to reach out to Freddie or Patrick directly, or myself or Chris, here's our contact information. Don't hesitate to shoot any of us an email. We're happy to respond to you directly. Again, thank you, Houston PD, for joining us today and supporting this webinar. Great job, guys. Thanks everybody for having us. We'll see you on the next webinar. Have a good day.